somebody yesterday, a friend of mine asked me what he should do when it comes to wagering on the Super Bowl. And I want to say, I want you to put your money back in your pocket and enjoy the game. Niners are still a 2-point favorite. Over-under's 47.5. I mean, there's some fun prop bets. Steven, are you gonna place any prop bets?
Yeah, of course so. I gotta do a little more research on national anthem stuff, Gatorade stuff. I need to do some research on Brock Purdy for the MVP, on who they thank first. That's always a big one I like to do. Because sometimes these guys are religious, so it's who are they?
He's religious.
So who are they going to thank first? It's usually God in that situation, not a teammate or coach. So there's some. I got to dig in a little bit more.
Most rushing yards in the game: Christian McCaffrey, Isaiah Pacheco, Patrick Mahomes, 14-1. Deebo Samuel, 40-1. I don't know. If you're betting on the color of the Gatorade, I'm worried about you.
Whoops.
Bet on the coin toss. Why? Just bet me on the coin toss. Why?
All right, let's do it. What do you want? Heads or tails?
It's tails.
All right. I'll take it.
Our next guest is going to give us the skinny. Mark Schipper, Fifth Down CFE on Twitter, college football on Twitter, CFB on Twitter. I'm sorry, B, not E. You have heard him on ESPN, SiriusXM. He's been on this show multiple times. He's fired up about this Chip Kelly thing. The decision to not fire Chip Kelly a year ago may be coming back to haunt UCLA. Mark Schipper joining us to talk about it from Chicago. Hey, so what's your day been like?
Yeah, John, it's funny. I was thinking about it. I actually woke up this morning planning to get a lot of work done, sat down at the old writing desk, and this hit the proverbial fan. So it's been a wild day.
Give me an idea, Chip Kelly to Ohio State. Let's unpack this a little bit. You've been doing some reporting on kind of what happened behind the scenes, his relationship with his athletic director, the university president, Gene Block. Give us the soap opera, the Cliff Notes on the soap opera.
Yeah, well, the move was really made last fall to get rid of Chip after UCLA's disastrous October. They lost to Arizona and then were beat by one of the worst football teams in Arizona State history at home in the Rose Bowl. Chip either fell below 500 for his tenure or fell back to 500. There were rumors of a fight in the locker room at the Arizona game, and so a move was made to fire Chip, but in the process of that happening, one of UCLA's major boosters, a guy named Casey Wasserman, this is public record, this was a newspaper piece, he came out basically on his own and said any talk of firing Chip Kelly at this point is ridiculous. His word was ridiculous. So that basically put the brakes on the fundraising for Chip's buyout. The chancellor stepped in with the athletic director, and the whole process came to a halt. And the big thing at that time is UCLA had some major coaching candidates who had either expressed interest or basically locks for the job, and Jonathan Smith at Oregon State and Jed Fish at Arizona. And, of course, those guys have now taken other jobs. UCLA is out of the running for them, and they're in a tough spot with the timing on Chip leaving for Columbus.
Yeah, what does UCLA do right now? You have the pulse of that fan base. What do the Bruins do?
Well, it's a really interesting question. Had this happened closer to the season, you could go with an interim coach and just say, we're going to take lumps year one, but we're going to take our time and hire the right coach going forward. But this has happened, 6 weeks before spring football. So I think putting an interim coaching staff in place to run spring ball and then just kind of get demolished year one in the Big Ten is a pretty tough ask. It would really hurt recruiting. It would probably hurt NIL unless the boosters got extremely motivated to dig them out of the hole. So I think the move is going to be hire a coach. Now, the deal with that is athletic director Martin Jarman may or may not be long for UCLA. There have been different messaging on that, but Chancellor Gene Block is gone. He retires July 31st. He's out. UCLA's hiring a new chancellor. So you've just got a lot of turnover at the top of these departments at the university, and they're going to try to hire a football coach. So Martin Jarmond has to channel everything he has and make a great hire here, or it's going to be an even messier situation for UCLA.
What does it say about the industry right now that a coach like Chip Kelly would view going from being the head coach at UCLA to being the offensive coordinator at Ohio State as a good move?
Yeah, well, I think for a guy like Chip, there's a lot of this going on in college football, and I think those are better discussions to have about guys leaving for the NFL. With Chip's kind of a unique case. You guys had Chip up in Oregon. You know, Chip got himself in trouble with some recruiting stuff in Oregon. At UCLA, he's made the bold and dynamic move of just not recruiting at all. He's been the worst recruiter in UCLA history. His class this year is 86 in the country, 18th out of 18th in the Big Ten. And it's just not something he wants to do, period. So you add NIL to that, fundraising with boosters, not just for the program, but for NIL. And Chip is totally disinterested in being a head college football coach. He really wanted to go to the NFL. That was clear. That was a destination he would have preferred, but the NFL turned him down at least 3 different spots. I just saw a credible report that the Cincinnati Bengals interviewed him last year to be the head coach there and turned him down. So I think at Ohio State, what he's got is a recruiting juggernaut, and he's not going to have to do anything. He'll step onto that field and say, look at all these beautiful players I get to put into my offense. So it's a much less stressful situation for Chip.
Yeah, the way I read it off the top of the show, as I explained it to my listeners, Mark, was, Chip Kelly knew in a year he was going to be, 5-7 in the Big Ten, get his teeth kicked in. And, at that point, with a new chancellor and, maybe a new athletic director, maybe he loses booster support, maybe he's out of a job in a year, right? He goes to Ohio State as a coordinator. They go to the playoff. Maybe they win a championship. Chip Kelly is a hireable commodity at that point. Is it as simple as that for Chip Kelly, the thinking, the logic of it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's purely as simple as that, but that would be a major through line in his thinking, I believe, absolutely. From the moment last year when UCLA moved to fire him and that got out with the booster making the public statements and Chip realized people are moving behind my back to fire me. By the way, 7 months after extending him, that's part of what made this so ugly for Chip there is the AD extended him March of last year, 7 months later in October, he's moving to fire him. So, yeah, Chip absolutely knew that it was over for him essentially at UCLA, kind of a dead man walking or lame duck situation. And, yeah, if he failed in the Big Ten and got fired, halfway in, or even if they let him have the whole season, all of a sudden his stock has bottomed out again. Whereas at Ohio State, exactly what you said could happen. They could have another Ohio State-esque season, and all of a sudden Chip's one of the hottest coordinators in the country again and maybe back in the NFL.
Mark Schipper with us with college football, Fifth Down College Football. Good follow on Twitter. I immediately started thinking about coaches like Lincoln Riley, Kyle Whittingham. Maybe he's an outlier because Utah's got such great culture. But we're watching Nick Saban and others that you've mentioned. The coach at Boston College goes to, says he wants to get back to coaching. He's going to the NFL. It's, who's next, Mark, as you look around? Are there other flight risks like Chip Kelly in college football?
Yeah, I don't have a list of specific names, but generally speaking, Lincoln Riley is an interesting one. Generally speaking, I just think it's a possibility because it's going to come down to booster culture and money-raising culture and really what happens in the next year or two with the NCAA and how they're going to handle athletes as employees or cutting them in on revenue or how they're going to deal with the pay-for-play situation, whatever form it is. With NIL, what you have put on coaches' plate is all their regular duties, plus an additional essential task of constantly hitting up your boosters and your fan base for money to essentially build a payroll for your roster. So you're asking your fans and boosters to do everything they normally do, season tickets, all the time they put into the program, everything they pay for already. Now they're paying for your payroll to keep your team together as well. So I can see coaches, if they are having to struggle too much to do that year by year and all year, and they don't get to focus on football, yeah, why wouldn't you be looking for one of those coveted NFL jobs where your only real mission is to be on the field coaching football and on the sideline coaching football? The contract stuff is taken care of by other people.
Mark, I immediately thought about Jonathan Smith He was at Oregon State. He jumped for the first port in the storm, so to speak, goes to Michigan State. I think he would have been top of the list for UCLA, top of the list for Washington. How does Jonathan Smith and Michigan State fit into the Big Ten? You're in the footprint there.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I would totally agree with you. Jonathan Smith, of course, from Pasadena, one or both parents UCLA alumni. He's expressed interest in the job. Jonathan Smith would have definitely been at the top of UCLA's list. Kalen DeBoer would have been the year before that when he beat UCLA at Fresno State, beat Chip in the Rose Bowl at Fresno State. UCLA didn't fire Chip that year either, and DeBoer went to Washington, of course. So, Michigan State, Jonathan Smith, we're going to find out what that's like. It's new territory for Jonathan Smith. He's going to be recruiting in an area with a lot of big powers scouring it. And when you get below the big powers, you've got schools like Iowa who are about the best in the country at identifying that next tier down of player to develop in their own program. And Michigan State and Iowa are kind of similar in that fashion in that they have to get the best of what the Michigans, the Ohio States, Penn States, et cetera, leave behind and develop those players. So Jonathan Smith is going to have to hire great coaches. They're going to have to do a great job recruiting, and then they're going to have to develop guys. So I think Jonathan Smith is much more comfortable on the West Coast getting kids and then going into the Midwest to play than he is being rooted in the Midwest. But we'll find out. He's a good coach and he's a smart guy, and we'll find out if he's capable of doing it.
Will college football split away from the other sports? Is that where we're headed?
I think so. I think major college football will, and there'll probably be a delineation in even major college football between like the so-called P5 tier programs and the G5 programs. There may even be a split there with some switch over, but Chip Kelly, the guy we're talking about here, actually he speaks pretty eloquently on the fact that football is a different beast, and that's been known for a long time. The amount of revenue, the amount of attention, everything about college football sets it apart from every other college sport. Even men's college basketball, as big as that is a distant second to college football. So I think in kind of the name of sanity and clarity, it probably will split, but that brings up a whole hornet's nest of other issues, as you know, particularly when you talk about employment and universities and state laws and everything else. So I think if they do split, they're probably looking at a situation where they need to third party the programs in some kind of certain way, affiliate with the universities as opposed to players being employees directly of the university, maybe making them employees of a conference entity or something like that. Otherwise, they got Title IX issues. They got, all the issues that public universities deal with in terms of unions and everything else. So it's not a simple situation, I will say that.
All right. It's really messy right now for UCLA. And, Chip Kelly being out of the way, there's going to be a faction of UCLA fans who celebrate this, right? I mean, it's not going to be all gloom and doom. They're going to be like, great, this is awesome. We get to go find a new coach. But give me an idea, Mark, like, the temperature of the fan base for athletic director Martin Jarmond is the view that he has mishandled this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely the view that he's mishandled this, and there are rumblings about things he's mishandled with the basketball program, and Mick Cronin as well. And there are, well-sourced rumors of a break between Block and Jarmond, and Gene Block losing confidence in Jarmond, which is why he may be replaced when the new chancellor comes in. So I think UCLA fans are overwhelmingly glad Chip is gone. I think they're trepidatious, upset about the timing a little bit. It's really weird timing for a head coach to leave, and it's going to cause UCLA problems. But the chance of replacement this summer, July 31st, and what goes on there is just going to be – we're not going to really know until then. So right now Martin Jarmond just got to make the best hire he can and hopefully put together a sane contract depending on who he gets, and then UCLA is going to have to go from there. But it's going to be – it's the dawn's. It's always darkest before dawn. I think UCLA's headed into the darkness for a little bit here before the sun's going to come back up.
Yeah, I was told that Chip Kelly and Martin Jarmond were not speaking last year. Yeah, I don't know if they mended it during the season, but last summer, I was told they were not speaking. and I kind of wondered how this would all play out. And certainly it looks like Chip Kelly kind of packed the van, flipped his middle finger out the window, and drove off. And so we'll see what happens. Mark Schipper, Fifth Down College Football. Thank you, man. Thanks for joining us.
John, appreciate you as always. Take care of yourself, all right?
All right, you too. There he goes.